Yeah, who say the way? Woo crew going live, in five. In a time where you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like mine? We got 10, got Graham, they all part of the fam. We got Fran, got Tess, and calling the man. Professor Ross, who started the plan. Got Lauren and Sajin, yeah, they heading the team. Got Kate and Kelsey, ain't nothing to tell me. Marcel and Joe got it hot like Nelly. Saya make the group go higher. Karina, we need her, she'll get it done when it's required. And I'm the one who's supplying all the fire. Woo crew, name a group who fly. Woo crew going live, in five. In the time when you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like mine? Woo crew going live, in five. In the time when you walk outside, you got your mask like your name Mike Myers. Ever met a gang that's lit like ours? Gone.
And I enjoyed interviewing Brian with Karina and Lauren. He talked a lot about how hip hop has changed over the years. He talked about how kids in lower and less fortunate areas, the project, the hood, hip hop gave them an identity. Whether it was through music, through dancing, through art. So he talked about that a lot, and that kind of gave me and left me with a different perspective on how hip hop affects people. He's very passionate about what he does. He speaks very highly of hip hop and the city of Worcester. And it was a blast talking to him. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from him, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Would you consider the Worcester hip hop community to be a music scene? And how would you characterize the local scene? Like, does it have a distinct identity?
I really couldn't even answer that right now. I think I've kind of been a bit disconnected from like Worcester specifically. Um, but in general, I would say, yeah, it definitely had its own identity. I think hip hop in general, um, even from like Worcester to Boston to Lawrence to New Bedford, kind of had distinct personalities um, up until maybe like the early 2000s. And that's kind of before like YouTube and all that, when things kind of got, you know, on one sense it's cool that, the globalization of it. But then with that globalization of it kind of comes a saturation of it, right? Um, so I can't really speak for right now, but if we're talking about like historically, absolutely.
Um, what's your relationship to the Worcester hip hop scene?
I break. So, um, like I've been breaking for about 20 years, and Worcester, Worcester's always had gems, you know, like there's always just been people that just pop up out of nowhere that you'd be like, yo, who's that? Like, yo, this person's killing it. Like, where's this person from? And you're expecting them to be like from somewhere, I don't know, out of state or something, because like they just popped up out of nowhere, right? And the community is so tight knit. Um, and then homie will be like, "Yo, I'm from Worcester," But I think that actually happens a lot with a lot of areas, not just exclusively Worcester. I think like some of those other places I mentioned that are a bit further out from the city, like Lowell and like Lawrence and Brockton, always had these gems that never really kind of like ventured out. They kind of just stayed um, in their own area, and in hip hop, we consider that like, hood legends.
I have a question. So, has Worcester's music scene either inspired, impacted, or changed the music, either that you produce or the way in which you break? Has it kind of changed that, or inspired it, or impacted it in any way, shape, or form?
Music, I'm not too sure. Um, in terms of like actually people from Worcester making music, um, I'm not too sure uh, about that. I've kind of gotten, I mean, because like I think for the first 15 years that I was breaking, I was just heavy on competing, you know. So I just be like, yo, I don't really care what's going on. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna sign up to battle, and I'm just gonna try to get some stripes, and I'm gonna rep. Um, and then it's kind of been more in the past 5 or 6 years, that's kind of been more. But I mean, throughout that 15 years, like you're seeing things change and evolve. Um, but it's only really been in the past 5 or 6 that's kind of been more stepping back, being a bit more introspective with it. I can't really talk too much about the music scene from Worcester, but in terms of the breaking and how it might have affected myself, absolutely. Um, to me, Worcester always had the ability to kind of like be on top. You know, they never quite actually like solidified that sort of standing or that status, I don't believe. But, you know, if those people that we're talking about, that like those gems, right? Like those hood legends, if they actually got the opportunity or even just organized a little bit, I feel like they could have really taken that top like status, without a doubt. But that's kind of just like the story of hip hop, right? It's kind of like they're these people that got all the talent in the world and they just have no opportunity at all. And then, life kind of hits. And then you're like, okay, well, now I got to like go be an adult and get a real job. And then you kind of shy away from this art that you just are naturally so masterful at. That's the unfortunate case of, when we talk about hip hop in the past. It's not quite the same as today. Today there are different ways to get opportunities, whether it's through music, like just SoundCloud, right, or even now with something like YouTube and Instagram, where you don't need to kind of get your stripes in a big city. You can kind of put your own stuff out there. If that talent was still around today in the same like stature that they were in back then, I think it would be a much different story.
Did you mention that you started out doing like battling, or would you be able to tell us a bit more about your journey with the breaking?
Yeah, I'm from Lynn, Massachusetts. So, that's kind of just like, Lynn, Worcester, Lowell, Lawrence, Brockton. It's kind of just like, how do I put it? Under-resourced communities, I think, is a nice way to put it. I try to steer away from like, yeah, it's the hoods and shit, like under-resourced communities. But those are places where hip hop thrives, right? Those are the type of areas that hip hop is like born out of. And it's kind of just really a part of the fabric of it. Like breaking is such a battle-driven dance form, and even like when it comes to, because you guys were talking about music as well, and rapping, like people making music, like even before it was like making a song for like a song for public consumption, it was like rap battles. Like hip hop, you like in the beginning was just very battle tested. And there was really nothing else to it. There wasn't really too many performing opportunities quite yet. A few here and there, but it was kind of like more monopolized, I guess you could say, by certain groups. Usually groups in like the big cities, like Boston, you know what I mean? So yeah, but at the time it was when we didn't have all those other options, right? Like, oh shit, breaking's going to the Olympics now, you know what I mean? And all, like before it was, you might have 4 events in the entire year in that region. And there was a point where it might be 4 events in the entire year in the whole country. And now we're kind of at a point, well, before COVID at least, where you'd have multiple events in one weekend. So the battling itself has kind of changed in that way. But I think it was very pure because there wasn't money involved. There was nothing you could really gain from it. A lot more often than not, when you really think about it, it seems kind of stupid to have gone so diehard in something with like nothing to kind of come out of it. You'd have like someone who's a world champion, and then, you know, a few years down the line, they're just like working at the local gas station, but this person's a world champion. You know what I mean? Um, so I think it has changed a lot. Absolutely. Um, in terms of my own journey, I don't know. I think I was just one of those kids that was really young, really naive, kind of fell too much in love with this. Didn't realize that stopping was even an option. But I think that's a whole nother conversation in terms of like why these things are important to people in those areas, right? Where it's like I'm a first generation born American. I'm born in 1990. My parents came to USA in 83 and they're refugees from Cambodia. For someone like myself, like, yo, hip hop's created by Black people. Look at me, I'm an Asian dude, right? But then that's when you go and you look at that intersection in terms of like, okay, cool. So what's my intersection into hip hop? And then you look at why hip hop is so powerful. When you talk to people that really practice hip hop in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a visual art, whether it's dance, whether it's music, you know, a lot of times you find them say that it, one, is an outlet, and two, it kind of gave them like an identity, right? It kind of gave them a self-worth. And then when you look at why an identity is important, when you look at why self-worth is important, kind of like we're all just kind of broke kids, right? Kind of being told like, you know, this, you ain't really gonna amount to nothing. You look at where you're from, like, what are you really gonna do? No one ever makes it out of here. And then you go to these battles and you kind of start killing it. You get in these props, you making up your own original stuff, right? And then you're like, all right, cool. Well, I might not have like too much material things, but I got these like original steps. I got these original phrases, and can I curse here? And like people are fucking with it. You know what I mean? Like that's like a richness and a self-worth that's so powerful. And then I don't know how familiar y'all are with like just hip hop and the values of it, but then there comes the topic of biting, which is like copying somebody, right? Whether you steal someone's beats or someone's lyrics, and in our world, it's like someone's movement and like ideas and stuff. And then the reason that's such a crime is like, yo, I don't really have anything, right? But I've got these things I've created, these steps, this move, this freeze, or maybe this beat or this rhyme, whatever it is, and you bit that from me. That's like my self-worth, and you just bit that from me. Like, dang, that's a robbery that hurts a lot. Coming from someone that's actually like been robbed before, like that's a robbery that really, really hurts. But I've been lucky that I've always been the baby of the group. So, you know, I was like the middle school kid hanging out with the high school kids. Partly because, you know, one of the people in my first crew was like my older brother. And then our old neighbor was also down. So I was just that young kid hanging out with them. So I would see them in their own timeline. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. Juki's off to college now. Dang, Juki stopped dancing because he went off to college. All right, cool. I'm just starting high school. All right, I'm gonna set myself up so when that time comes, when I'm done with high school, you know, because some other members didn't go to college. They just went straight to working, and they stopped dancing because they had to go straight into work. You know what I mean? All right, cool. So when I'm in that position, whether I go straight to work or whether I go to college, like I need to keep dancing. Because to me, you know, I'm just still so young and in love with it. To me, it was such a sin to stop dancing. It was unheard of.
When you kind of talk about young kids and like how you grew up, you know, kind of in urban areas, do you think young kids still feel that same way in terms of kind of having self-worth and identity, since now that hip hop has kind of grown bigger and it's in suburb areas?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think the outlet that provides it has changed in a way. You know what I mean? So even looking beyond hip hop, looking beyond, or maybe we could keep it hip hop, and then but going beyond breaking, right? Let's just say for me, street dance, right? I think the energy and the spirit that breaking had when I first started, that purity and that rawness, before it kind of got really saturated and such, that energy is still alive and well in those areas, but it's not in breaking anymore. That energy and that spirit is alive and well, I believe, in crump. You know what I mean? So then that kind of looks at like the lifespan of a dance form. You know, street dance is like 50 years old. Crump, I think, is like 30 years old. You know what I mean? So you kind of just look at the life cycle of where certain dance forms are at and kind of like the collective consciousness of that dance. A lot of the things going on in crump right now are things that breaking was going through when I first started. You know what I mean? But then if I'm around and there's a crump lab going on, that energy that's going down, like even though the movement is different and the music is different, all that, but that energy that you feel, like that feeling of like liberation of I can't even really put words to it. It's that same feeling that was around breaking when I first started. So I'd say it's definitely still alive and well. It's definitely still there, but it might not be through that same outlet. And I think that's where the generational gaps kind of hit hip hop. You know what I mean? Because then you'll have people kind of being like, well, first you got some crumpers that say crump is even hip hop. You know what I mean? But they'll say it is street dance. And then, you know, I think it holds true to the music as well. There's to be like, well, you know, look at like trap music, right? And certain people are like, well, that's not hip hop. And then there's other people like, no, this is the hip hop of this generation. You know what I mean? Whether you like it or not, like this is just what it is. This is how people get whatever off their chest that they kind of need to get off their chest, you know? And it's not you with something that you need to get off your chest. So who are you to say? Because these people are over here getting that same sense of freedom, getting that same sense of salvation, getting that same sense of empowerment through this outlet here that I was able to get through whatever outlets it is that I chose, which for me is breaking. Yeah, man, absolutely. That shit is still alive and well.
Would you say that you have a dream job?
Nah. Just because I don't know, it's been weird. I've actually been thinking about that a lot in terms of like a job. I mean, I think a job, you kind of need a retirement plan. And this might sound wild because I've said this out loud a few times and I've kind of been like, yo, maybe I've gone off the deep end. You know what I mean? Like walking that fine line and maybe it's like, oh no, this dude just went crazy. Like a job kind of needs like a retirement plan, right? You know what I mean? Like if you're a doctor, you can't just be a doctor until like your dying day. You know what I mean? Like you don't grow, you kind of lose your sharpness over time and all that. But to me, like ever since I've just decided I'm going to dedicate my life to doing whatever I got to do with street dance, and always having it as like the core part of my life. Cause you know, there's always that instance, right? Like, and this was true when I was in school, even a few years when I graduated school, where when I was in school, school was the main center point of my life and everything revolved around school, right? Oh shit, I can't go to practice today. I got mad homework to do because I got exams coming up, or like all those types of things. And then when you graduate, it's like, okay, well now I got my 9 to 5. Dang, I got to say no to this gig because I can't get the day off from work type of thing. Like there's always something that sits center, right? That everything else kind of revolves around. And more often than not for people, it ends up being school, it ends up being your occupation, to the detriment of the shit you actually care about, you know? So then when I decided, I was like, nah, I'm going to make dancing that center point. And whatever job or whatever career and all that has to be centered around my dancing. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. lot of sacrifices that comes with that. You know, I think that type of narrative, I think, gets romanticized a lot. But I don't think there is an ideal job. It's just kind of more of an ideal lifestyle. You know what I mean? And as long as whatever job or responsibilities I'm doing still allow me to live this particular lifestyle, then I'm cool with it. You know, I never would have thought I'm supposed to be a operations director of a nonprofit. If you told me that like 10 years ago, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? I'm just out here trying to get some stripes. But if this is what I got to do to keep dance as the core part of my life and everything else kind of revolves around it, then all right, I'm game. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of sacrifices that come with it on every level, you know, not just like on a financial level, like even in your social life. You know what I mean? A lot of this dance stuff will happen, let's say in the evenings. So when my 9 to 5 homies is like, cool, we out of work, yo, let's meet up, let's go out. I'm like, yo, I'm just about to clock in. You know what I mean? It's like, it might be easier for me to pull up and meet you on your lunch break than for us to meet after you get out of work. But if you're down for all that, you're really ready to like make that sacrifice. Like I said, there's only certain opportunities that come in the deep end. Like a lot of these opportunities don't come 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So, and that's just up to you as an artist and what you're willing to like go through, what you're willing to kind of suffer for, not to sound kind of morbid, what you're willing to suffer for in correspondence to the aspirations of your art form. So no dream job, but I know what type of lifestyle I want.
So you've mentioned a couple of times about your nonprofit. So I just wanted to ask, just could you like elaborate and tell us more about why and kind of how it came about and how you started it up and maybe ways that maybe we could become involved?
So the nonprofit is called The Flavor Continues, which is also kind of weird because The Flavor Continues just started off as like a joke between me and my homies. And I would just say it all the time. You know what I mean? Where like I'd always just be a busy person. Like, all right, cool, we got this event coming up. I'm gonna train because like I'm trying to go and win. And if I don't win, I'm gonna just rep and like kill it. But I'm going guns blazing. All right, boom, event's done. All right, cool. Maybe you put up like a video of the event. Oh, you know, I trained and I did my best and I didn't win, whatever. End it with The Flavor Continues. Cool, like on to the next one, right? Now I'm organizing an event, putting on a different hat. You organize whatever, and you're planning all these things out. And then, you know, come time to write the thank you post for the event. And it's like, yo, thank you everybody that came, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? We'll see you at the next one. The Flavor Continues. And it just keeps going because like I'll be wearing all these different hats within the dance community. And then after doing kind of like so much of that and seeing the positive impact that it was having on the local communities in terms of Massachusetts overall, in terms of the quality of events that we were doing, whether it was a grassroots event or whether we were collaborating with a collegiate partner, of which I think we were collaborating with like 4 or 5 different colleges per year on a recurring basis. And then, but still traveling and competing at a high level. So, you know, it was like, you know, those people in school that like are just good, like they get good grades, they get straight A's, but they're also probably like captain of some sports team. And you're just kind of like, man, this person is just like doing all of this and is just good at all of that. Like, and you kind of like low key, like jelly, like, come on, like this person, like what they doing? Well, I was never that kid in school, but a part of me kind of felt like I was like that type of person when it came into like the dance world. Because I would compete at a high level and I would help organize events and all that. But that's where The Flavor Continues kind of started. Now we see the community impact, but it's not sustainable, right? Because I'm still like maybe working and stuff and a regular job and all that. And It's not very fulfilling, and it's very prone to burnout, which was a huge problem actually, because a lot of the people in these positions would be in these positions for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years and just like gun it and then just burn out and disappear. And then somebody else would show up and just gun it, hand a stretch of time, burn out, disappear, right? So again, remember, I always say I've always been the baby of the groups and of just kind of the community. So just kind of looking out a lot and being like, okay, well, why did mine stop doing what he was doing? Why did Jaws pop off and build this thing up and that shit's hot and then just stop doing it? Why did Babel build this thing up and then just stop doing it? You know what I mean? And kind of talking to them, I was also lucky because, you know, those people, like, they rock with me. So they are a phone call away. And just like, yo, it's the burnout, it's not sustainable and this and that. And kind of being like, all right, cool. So back to that same thinking of that, being always that little kid, like, how do I set myself up so that I'm not going burnout, so that it can be more sustainable? And the nonprofit was the way to go, you know. And the original idea, and this was when I was still super naive to it, was like, well, nonprofits can get grants and we can apply for grants and we can get that, and that's just going to pay for everything, right? Again, naive mind, because now in the nonprofit world, I'm like, that's not how this shit goes. Still worth it though. So then I met a business partner of mine named Jin Yi. And to be honest, she moved here from San Diego, like, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And she's like, they're like the secret weapon. You know what I mean? I had built all this stuff up within the community and kind of, I guess, like the unofficial branding before the branding type thing. And their values are aligned in terms of type of work that they want to do and like the battery behind it. But they actually like started nonprofits before back in their home and kind of have like that know-how, right? They're newer in the dance world, but in this type of world, like they're familiar with that. So Jenny's like a cheat code, because the first they hit me up and they was like, yo, I want to talk to you. I hear, you know, they was doing their homework and my name kept coming up. So they hit me up, yo, I want to meet with you, talk about this. And that first day that we met, yo, they pulled out their laptop and registered as a nonprofit. Like within me meeting this person of like an hour. And to be honest, I think I did the most that I could to get whatever community impact type of thing. I think I took it as far as I could before being able to actually continue growing. I honestly believe if it wasn't for Jinyi coming in and kind of having the know-how of turning it into a nonprofit and all the work behind it in terms of getting incorporated and creating the bylaws and all that good stuff that I still don't understand to this day, I think I would have just plateaued and probably burnt out like those people before me, you know? But our mission is bigger than just breaking too, because I only break. And Jinyi, they're house dancers. They are a house dancer, but they also crump and they pop. Like they're a lot more versatile. Everyone else on the team is versatile. Like I'm the most vanilla person on the team. And we expanded it from just being focused on, I was only focused on breaking. That's all I know. I wasn't going to try to step in a lane that I don't know. But now with the rest of the team, we're focused on street and club dance. And the reason we're focused on street and club dance is because those are two families of dance forms that incorporate so many various, I can't even tell you how many numbers of street and club dance forms there are. That are just created, you know, by marginalized communities. Well, specifically created by Black people. And kind of the power to that in terms of, you know, like we were talking about earlier, of like, it empowers people, it gives people identity, right? And why it's important for people to have a sense of identity in these types of areas. And, you know, it's done so much for us in our life, that we kind of want to create opportunities for that to keep going. But we're going to do it in a way where we're not burning ourselves out, in a way where we are able to access resources. Because I mean, even to this day, we have trouble accessing resources, and that's a fight that we're willing to fight and that we're willing to get behind. And we got the community behind us already. So we just want to be able to provide more opportunities for street and club dancers without it having to be too like, what's the word? Compromised. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times it's like, a lot of times our narratives it gets what I call Disney channeled out. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you see those dance moves, oh my God, dance saved my life. And then they like make it corny. But then like the message behind it though is like, no, but that message is real, but they just Disney channeled that the fuck out. You know what I mean? Because it is. It's like I could say that, like, yo, dance did save my life. But then if I say that to somebody that's not familiar or aware, they might be like, oh yeah, that sounds like the Step Up movie. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, man, fuck Step Up. So it's kind of funny in that way, where we don't have the actual proper representation of street and club dance. That's kind of more out there in the public. So, you know, shoot, if hip hop taught me anything, is to make something out of nothing, and I'm still doing it. And we made a nonprofit out of nothing. And, you know, we're like 2 years strong, and we've got like 5 years before we actually became, well, it's 2 years strong officially as a nonprofit. And before those 2 years was like 4 years of that community work and build up, not even knowing that this was going to become a thing. And yeah, the team is now 4 people. I think we each wear like 20 hats each. You know what I mean? I'll be the operations director, the accountant, the legal person, the community liaison, and the mascot, and like, you know, all these different things, right? And then everyone else got their own set of responsibilities as well. But it's a beautiful thing, really.
Has like running a nonprofit given you a different perspective on breaking and everything?
Yeah, yes and no. Because to me, like, a lot of times when people ask me, like, what do you want to happen with the nonprofit? You know, and I get this question a lot, especially since we hold space here. And to be honest, my ultimate goal with this is that people in our community will be kind of motivated and compelled to like join in on this type of work. And, you know, maybe we could provide opportunities for them to join in, and we can make it worth their while, like getting them, you know, getting like, let's say we have 4 people now. Let's say we were able to grow operations to be like, I don't know, 20 people, where it's like, you only got to wear one hat. If you're the accountant, that's it. You're just the accountant. If you're the lawyer, that's it. You're just the lawyer. If you're the operations director, like, that's it. You know what I mean? If you're the studio manager, that's it. You don't got to be doing all these things at once. And to be able to build it out in that way, so that, and this is kind of a bit selfish, but I'm aware of it, so that I could just pull up, break, and be like, all right, cool, peace, and go home. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I just want to show up, break, chill with some homies, talk some shit, and be like, all right, cool, it's good seeing you. I'll see y'all next time, and just go on about my way. Like, I'm not too crazy about like, oh, well, I'm the co-founder and this and that, or I'm so-and-so. And, you know, I'm more of the guy that's like, yo, I'd rather just be like chilling in the corner, minding my business. You know what I mean? And kind of only really stepped into these positions it almost feels like a civic obligation to the breaking community. And then kind of being like, well, shoot, the breaking community is not going to quite, or maybe it could do it by itself, but it didn't feel right to just do it as breaking, because, you know, all the other dance forms that are street and club dance also, those are like our cousins, you know what I mean? So kind of like keeping everybody involved in that way. Now, my voice is only relevant in breaking, I would say, but that's why we have a whole team. Um, I think it's made me a bit more of a dreamer, I guess, because now that we're seeing like, hold up, what? You can get how much money through a grant? This grant is giving you how much? Like, okay, cool. So, and you gotta like super itemize everything and plan it out. But I have an accounting background that I got in my bachelor's degree, so like I'm comfortable around a spreadsheet and allocating all of that type of stuff. So like planning those things out is kind of cool because you could really just let like your visionary ideas just run wild, right? In terms of breaking down those numbers and stuff, or even creating programming, like even the way that we teach, because going back to Jin Yi, they got us in like 6 different Boston public schools, like easy. So then we were teaching street and club dance too in Boston public schools through the social emotional learning lens. You know what I mean? Where it's not just like do this, where it's like, how's this feeling in your body? You know what I mean? And kind of on a very holistic point. And teaching in that manner has almost made me fall in love with this shit all over again. You know, seeing like youngins falling in love with it and seeing them like just grow so fast because something that might have taken me 6 years to figure out, I just shared with them and they got it in 6 minutes. And a part of you is jealous, but a part of you is also just so proud. But it does, it makes you fall in love with it all over again. And on that part of it, like, I'm happy to be on this end. But I can't lie, there's a part of me that's like, yo, it's cool because we're finding ways to make these ideas that you're like, oh, but that's like, I'm just a kid from Lynn. Like, that's such a big idea. That's whatever. That's just some things like, yo, imagine this. That would be so dope, right? Yeah, okay. And then that's it. And you kind of just leave it at that. But being in a position was like, yo, we actually are like making some shit come to life.
Thank you so much for interviewing with us.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.
Cool. I appreciate y'all time. It's cool, to be in this position. Like a college wants to interview you and be like, what? Why? Okay. I'm just going to go and talk some mess for a little bit. So thank y'all for listening to me ramble. Y'all ask some cool, good questions too. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people just be asking dumb questions. But so, I think what y'all doing is dope. Digging through the history and kind of, this is where hip hop's heading, right? You know what I mean? That's the beautiful part of it. And I think y'all are ahead of the curve. Y'all paving the way too. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like y'all on the same type of mission, paving it in this whole other way. And who knows what's to come out of it? Because y'all are a part of things that are way bigger than just y'all. You know what I mean? That are going to be like forever cemented because y'all doing it through like institutions and shit. I don't know if y'all even realize that. This might just be a homework assignment to you. You know what I mean? But like, yo, I just want y'all to know what y'all doing is big right now. So I want to thank y'all as someone that like loves this shit, lives it, culture, lifestyle, as just kind of dedicated my life to it. Like, thank y'all for what y'all doing.
A word from our state rep, Daniel Donahue, about an important nonprofit organization located in Worcester. We hope you will support in solidarity with the Woo Crew.
Hi, I'm Daniel Donahue, Massachusetts State Representative for the 16th Worcester District. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a bit more about Abby's House, a nonprofit organization that values women from diverse backgrounds and experiences in my hometown of Worcester, Mass. The mission of Abby's House is to provide shelter and affordable housing, as well as advocacy and support services to homeless, battered, and low-income women with or without children. This is an important organization in our community, values hospitality, diversity and inclusion, compassion and respect, women's self-determination, and collective effort. Holy Cross was the first class to help support the women of Abby's House by providing volunteers to staff the shelter dating back to 1976. And Holy Cross students and alumni continue to partner with Abby's House by providing monetary, in-kind, and volunteer support. I hope you'll consider joining us by making a donation to Abby's House in honor of their 45th anniversary. Your donations will help to keep in operation the 79 units of supportive housing and 9 overnight shelter beds of Abby's House. Additionally, your donation will contribute to the wonderful programs of Abby's House, such as providing each woman with an advocate who helps her identify realistic goals and provides her with the tools she needs to achieve these goals. If you are able and willing to make a gift to this amazing nonprofit, please click the link accompanying this video. If you would like to learn more about Abby's House, including opportunities for volunteering, please visit them at abbyshouse.org. Thank you.
Thank you for your time listening to our state representative talk about this great opportunity to support the Worcester community. And now back to the Woo Crew for more excitement.